Well, start off as I think my whole life has always been about taking something I love and making money from it. I think son of a pastor, grandson of a pastor, and I came from a very religious background in the church, and spent the rest of my life running away from it because it was so opposite to what LA is about. So early on in my career, I pretty much just went from working in Boston Market, which was my first and only job in the retail space, and after that, moving on to collecting comic books and baseball cards, and then selling comic books and baseball cards. And when I was 16, I discovered the nightclub. And when I went to the nightclub, it almost was like a church, very similar, where people congregate and have a good time. Less restriction and all about lifestyle. And one thing that really appealed to me was the amount of Asians that attended the nightclubs. And so 2 years later, when I was 18, I threw my first party, and I realized that there was a way now that I can build a community. And really wasn't a business at first, but what I realized was when I enrolled into USC, I had a big bill to pay. And so I started throwing parties, and basically that became one of the major funders of my tuition. And after that, I had my first corporate job at Andersen. 8 months into it, I was offered a management position at Lionsgate as well, and then was there for a little less than a year and decided to just become an entrepreneur. Continue the party endeavors, and the parties went from 1 to 13 cities at one point, just because the fact that I think there's a need for it. I think beyond it just being a good time, it was a place of congregation, a place where people can find people they can relate to, that outside of that world in the corporate space at the time and the year that it was. This was in the 90s, or actually early, 90s, that there just wasn't much of a voice for Asian Americans, and in this nightlife they could actually let go and be themselves. One night I remember I went to sleep after clicking on the link that my friend sent me, and it was funny because back then it was so slow for download, and the link never really downloads, but I kind of just left it going. But I went to sleep that night, and I remember 3 or 4 in the morning I hear this like rap battle voice going off, and I was like, what the heck is that? And so I got up, turned on my computer, and there was that Jin clip where he won BET 106 in Park. Then I was like, whoa, what's this? And I searched for him, and I found that he was coming to La Privé for his first show in Los Angeles at the time. And of course, I went to go watch and support, and even help promote the show. And that night, and being a promoter, of course, one of our biggest assets is our contacts, and that being my cell phone. And the fact that I never lose anything, that was the first night where I jumped up and down so much, I ended up losing my cell phone. And on the way out of the club, I was like so upset. I was like, man, that's my life. And my friend Jeff, who was actually with me at the time, called my phone over and over again, and then it picks up. And then on the other end was Jin. And it turned out he had found my phone, and then we ended up exchanging phone numbers, and we kept in touch ever since. And toured from all over the world, and developed a very close relationship, and eventually became his manager. R.E.H.A.B movement was another group that I work with, and basically they became in my life because they had thrown charity concerts, and when we met, we really saw things on the same page. And at the end of the day, I mean, for us, our mission is really just to be part of the buzz and the excitement when when a world icon of an Asian face finally appears to the world. And that's pretty much what we're living for. We've never done this for the business, we've never done this for the money. At the end of the day, we're here with a mission. And beyond having that Asian face becoming a global icon, who is that icon going to be, and what message are they going to convey? And one of our biggest thing is that there's been enough cool factor and swagger given to the sex, the drugs, the rock and roll. We don't need that anymore. The idea is, we are Asian Americans, and one thing we've never been proud of is we've never been proud of who we are. And who we are to the world, and what is the authenticity behind it, is we are a model minority. And why can't we be proud of that? And so the biggest idea behind who we are and what we do and all the content that we put out there is to create role models for the next generation. I was born in Hong Kong, and growing up for the first 8 years of my life, grew up in front of the TV. And growing in front of the TV, I saw the China Fats, the Stephen Chow's, the China Fat, whatever, just all the stars of the era. That's who I grew up with. But when I moved to America, I it's funny because I didn't realize I was Asian until I moved to America, because I looked on screen and there's no one I could relate to. And what happens then, to all the Asian kids growing up in my generation, some of them, think they're black, some of them think they're white surfer skaters, some of them just, put their head down and live through life as quietly as possible, thinking, they won't garner any attention. And, I think it's not fair. I think it's just not freedom, it's not what the American dream should be. And that's kind of what we've always been out to do, to change that American dream. People always ask, man, how does Jin do it? How does FM do it? How do I do it? I think we all share that passion. I think at the end of the day, we're here to change the world. I think, you only live one life. And, what are you going to do? Sit behind a desk and collect your cash? I mean, that's just not what life is about. Life is about experiences. And, at the end of the day, I'm super blessed. I feel like, what do people save all their money and retire for? Right? I mean, you retire, you're 65 years old, you have money in the bank, but what are you going to do? You're going to travel the world, right? You're going to eat nice meals, right? You're going to get to watch all the entertainment in the world, and that's what I spent the last 10 years of my life doing. Name a place I haven't been to, and that's pretty much how blessed I feel I have been, on pursuing the career that I pursued. And even, what really even matters more is, inspiring the next generation to do something different. Because, for me, I just never thought it was fair. It was never fair for, a lot of the guys in our generation to be born with this Asian face. I don't think it was a thing where we weren't, people are racist or anything fundamentally, but the idea is that there's a certain assumption. I mean, when you look at the casting that takes place in major Hollywood films that make it out to the mass markets, or even on TV, fundamentally they're very stereotype roles. And yes, we might stand out in that particular area from the generations above us, but the new generations has changed, and we are a different breed now. And I think what it is now is, I think it is everything I've dreamt it to be, and I thank God every day for giving this to me. And I think I just ask him to use me however he wants to use me, and take this thing to the next level. And I think at the end of the day too, I think one thing we always gotta remember is the idea of this company being a global company. We're not based in the States, we're not based in Hong Kong, we're based globally. And our idea is to reach the global audience and really appeal to that next generation that I think has looked beyond the barriers of race, and look beyond the barrier of judgment, and it's all about just having a good time and moving forward. Because I think now it's just like, especially like, let's say in the Middle East, or just even all parts of the world, there's just too much fighting over nonsense, and at the end of the day, what are these guys gonna do? Like, they're gonna die with all the money buried with them, and they might. So it's kind of like, but is that our value? I'm not sure. Do I want to run around for the next 30 years of my life watching my back? No, that's not really what I want to do. So I think, the idea is to promote transparency, promote, positivity, and, just create some good role models out there, to inspire the next generation. Because that's what God put us on this earth to do, to be creative.